Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive that just might change how you think about time.
Intriguing.
We're going to be looking at a book written way back in 1910.
Oh, wow.
It's called How to Live on 24 Hours a Day by Arnold Bennett.
Okay.
And we're going to explore this idea of time management, but not like a super strict schedule or
Right.
like a way to actually live better,
Yeah. Make the most of it.
totally make the most of it.
I like that.
So get ready to discover this hidden day within a day
Ooh, I like that.
and learn how just changing your perspective a little bit
Yeah.
can help you get the most out of your 24 hours, not just for productivity, but for really enjoying life and bettering yourself,
That's powerful.
right?
It's remarkable how relevant Bennett's ideas still are, over a century later.
It really is.
He starts by reminding us that time is the most precious resource we have,
Yeah.
but we often treat it as something we can just endlessly waste or take for granted.
It's so true.
We don't even realize it.
It's like that saying, the bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot.
I love that.
Bennett really hammers home the fact that we all get the same 24 hours.
Yeah.
No more, no less. It's a limited resource, and once it's gone, it's gone.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of a time budget comes in. Just like we track our finances,
Yeah.
we need to be mindful of how we spend our time.
I like that.
But Bennett's approach isn't about squeezing every last drop of productivity out of our day.
Right.
It's more about investing our time in the things that truly matter to us.
I see.
The things that bring us joy, make us feel fulfilled, and help us grow as individuals.
So it's not about doing more, it's about doing the right things.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing.
Awesome. So let's unpack this time budget concept a bit more.
Sure.
What are some practical steps we can take to start being more intentional with our time?
Well, Bennett's biggest challenge to us is to break free from the mindset that our 8-hour workday is our entire day.
Oh.
He wants us to see those 16 hours outside of work as our real chance to really live.
I like that.
A day within a day, hidden in plain sight.
Okay.
He even uses the example of someone in London working a 10 to 6 job with a 50-minute commute each way.
Wow.
Even with that schedule, there are still 8 unaccounted for hours in the day.
8 hours. That's a lot of time.
It is.
It really highlights how we often underestimate how much free time we actually have.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, what are we doing with those 8 hours?
Yeah. Are we just scrolling through social media?
Mindlessly watching TV?
Exactly. Or just letting those hours slip away without even realizing it.
That's a scary thought.
It is. And that's
Okay.
exactly Bennett's point.
Yeah.
He's urging us to be more conscious of how we spend those precious hours.
Okay.
And the first step, he says, is mastering this thing he calls mind control.
Mind control, that sounds a bit intense.
Yeah, I know, right?
Is he talking about hypnosis or something?
Not quite.
Okay, good.
Bennett's idea of mind control is much more down to earth. It's basically the ability to focus our attention, to choose what we think about, and to resist distractions.
So being more present.
Yeah, exactly. And recognizing that our minds are incredibly powerful tools. We can either be controlled by them or learn to control them.
So it's more about self-discipline and focus than anything mystical.
Right. It's about taking charge of our thoughts.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that?
Yeah. How do we put this into practice?
Are there any specific things Bennett recommends for strengthening our mental muscles?
Well, one of his simplest but most effective suggestions is to just choose a subject, anything that interests you,
Okay.
and just concentrate on it for a set amount of time.
Okay.
He even recommends doing this during those in-between times,
Like commuting or waiting in line.
Exactly.
Instead of just letting our minds wander, we can actively engage them with something stimulating.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like turning those wasted moments into little mental workouts.
I love that analogy.
And it doesn't have to be anything too complex.
Right.
Bennett even suggests thinking about a chapter from Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus.
Oh, wow. Going way back.
You'd be surprised how relevant these ancient philosophers are to our modern lives.
Yeah, dealing with stress and distractions and trying to find meaning.
It's all there.
It's funny you mention those ancient thinkers because I've always been a bit intimidated by the classics.
Really.
Yeah, I always thought they were too dense or hard to understand,
I did that.
but maybe I need to rethink that.
I encourage you to give it a try.
Okay,
You might be surprised how accessible and insightful those works can be.
I'll put it on my list.
They offer a unique perspective that can help us handle the challenges of modern life with more clarity and wisdom.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, okay.
So we've talked about mind control and making the most of those little pockets of time.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about another big part of Bennett's philosophy. Self-reflection.
Ah, yes. Self-reflection is crucial for making the most of our time.
It's not just about analyzing our actions, but understanding our motivations, our values, and our goals.
Right, it's about making sure our actions are in line with our principles and striving for a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
That's deep.
It is.
So it's like taking stock of where we are, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there.
Exactly.
But it's so easy to get caught up in the everyday craziness and forget to take time for introspection.
It is.
How does Bennett suggest we actually work reflection into our routine?
He emphasizes that even just a few minutes of dedicated reflection each day can have a big impact.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be some big formal process.
Right.
It can be as simple as taking a few moments at the end of the day to review your actions, thoughts, and feelings.
Like hitting the pause button on the day and giving ourselves a chance to process and learn from our experiences.
Precisely.
I could definitely see the value in that.
And it's not just about looking back.
Okay.
Reflection can also help us plan for the future,
Right.
to make more conscious choices about how we want to spend our time and energy.
So it's about looking back to move forward.
I like that.
It's about using reflection as a tool for growth and self-improvement.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, does Bennett offer any specific questions or prompts to help guide our reflection?
He does. He's just asking ourselves questions like,
Huh?
what did I do well today?
Hmm.
What could I have done better?
That-
What am I grateful for? What am I looking forward to?
Those are great questions
Simple but powerful.
and so adaptable. You could use them for daily reflection, weekly check-ins, or even bigger life assessments.
Absolutely.
But sometimes reflection can be a bit, uncomfortable.
I know what you mean.
It can bring up those nagging doubts or those things we'd rather not think about.
It's true.
How does Bennett address that?
He acknowledges that reflection can be challenging sometimes, especially if we're not used to it.
Right.
But he says it's precisely in those moments of discomfort that we have the greatest opportunity for growth.
So it's about leaning into the discomfort, knowing that it's a sign that we're pushing ourselves to evolve.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. And he reminds us that self-compassion is key.
Yeah.
You don't need to be perfect.
Yeah.
We just need to be willing to learn and grow from our experiences.
Well said. I think that's an important point to remember, especially today.
With all the pressure to be perfect.
Yes, exactly. With all the messages about perfection and achievement, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism and comparison.
It's so true.
And that's why Bennett's emphasis on self-reflection is so refreshing. It's not about striving for some unattainable ideal.
Right.
It's about getting to know ourselves better, accepting our imperfections, and embracing the journey of lifelong learning.
I love that. It's about embracing the messiness of life and finding the beauty in our imperfections.
Yeah.
It's about being kind to ourselves and recognizing that we're all works in progress.
Beautifully said. And that brings us to another important aspect of Bennett's philosophy. The idea that true fulfillment comes not just from what we do, but from how we do it.
I like that.
He uses this wonderful analogy of a traveler exploring a new city.
Oh, tell me more about that. I love a good analogy.
He suggests that we should approach our days with the same sense of curiosity and wonder as a traveler exploring a new city.
Okay.
It's not about rushing from one tourist attraction to the next.
Right.
It's about taking the time to savor the details, the architecture, the sounds, the smells, the interactions with the locals.
So it's about being fully present in the moment and experiencing life with all our senses engaged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's about being open to new experiences and unexpected discoveries.
Okay.
Just like a traveler might stumble upon a hidden gem while wandering through a new city.
Yeah.
We can find moments of joy and wonder in the everyday if we approach our lives with the right mindset.
I love that idea. It's about turning the mundane into the magical, simply by shifting our perspective.
It is.
But how do we actually cultivate this sense of curiosity and wonder in our daily lives?
Yeah, especially when we're so bogged down with responsibilities and routines.
It's hard.
It is. That's where Bennett's emphasis on mind control comes in again. He suggests that we can choose to focus our attention on the things that fascinate us, even in the most ordinary tasks.
So it's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
I like that.
It's about training our minds to see the world with fresh eyes, to appreciate the beauty and complexity that's all around us.
Yes, and it's about cultivating a sense of gratitude for the simple things.
The little things.
Yes, the taste of a good meal, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of laughter.
I love that.
These are the things that truly enrich our lives and make each day feel like a gift.
It's amazing how a book written over a century ago can still feel so relevant and inspiring.
It really
It's a
is.
testament to the timeless wisdom of Bennett's insights.
It is a reminder that the key to a fulfilling life isn't about finding more time.
Hmm.
It's about changing how we think about the time we have.
I like that a lot.
It's like reframing our relationship with time,
Okay.
viewing it not as something that's constantly slipping away, but as a canvas on which we can paint our own masterpiece.
That's beautiful.
I like that analogy a lot. And speaking of masterpieces, Bennett is a big advocate for what he calls serious reading.
Serious reading.
Yeah, he dedicates a whole chunk of the book to it.
Okay.
But he's not just talking about any reading.
Oh, right.
He specifically says no novels.
No novels. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the more surprising parts of the book.
Okay.
Bennett argues that while novels can be enjoyable and even insightful,
Right.
they don't require the same level of intellectual engagement as other types of literature.
I see.
He believes we should set aside time for what he calls serious reading,
Okay.
focusing on works that really challenge our thinking, expand our knowledge, and refine our judgment.
I'll admit, as someone who loves to read, the idea of excluding novels from my reading list felt a bit extreme at first.
Yeah, I got that.
But I'm curious about Bennett's reasoning.
Yeah,
So what does he suggest we focus on instead?
he puts poetry at the top of the list.
Poetry.
Yeah, he calls it the highest form of literature, capable of giving us the highest form of pleasure and the highest form of wisdom.
Wow, high praise.
He believes poetry demands more from us as readers.
Okay.
It forces us to really engage with the language, the imagery, and the deeper meaning.
So it's not just passive reading.
Not at all. It's active engagement with the text.
I see.
He even suggests starting with Hazlitt's essay on the nature of poetry as a way to understand the true essence of this art form.
That's a good idea.
Bennett argues that once we grasp the power and beauty of poetry,
Yeah,
we'll naturally be drawn to the works of the masters.
that makes sense.
He even recommends a specific place to start: Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Leigh.
Aurora Leigh. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
He describes it as an infinitely finer English novel written by a woman,
Wow.
surpassing any prose novel in its depth and artistry.
It's interesting how he frames Aurora Leigh as a gateway into the world of poetry.
Yeah.
He seems to understand that for some people, diving straight into classic poems might feel overwhelming.
It can be.
So by suggesting this novel in verse, he's offering a more accessible entry point.
Exactly. He's acknowledging that people might have preconceived notions about poetry,
Right.
but he's encouraging them to look beyond those assumptions and discover the richness and beauty that poetry has to offer.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't quite sold on poetry, what else does Bennett recommend?
He suggests exploring history and philosophy.
Okay.
He sees those disciplines as essential for understanding the human condition, the forces that shape our world, and the ideas that have shaped our civilization.
That's a big scope.
It is.
He emphasizes that reading history isn't just about memorizing dates and facts.
Right.
It's about understanding patterns of human behavior
The causes and consequences of events.
and the lessons we can learn from the past to create a better future.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
He points to classics like The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire
Oh, wow.
and Herbert Spencer's First Principles
Okay.
as examples of works that, while demanding, offer profound insights into the human condition.
Yeah, they're not light reading.
But he believes that by immersing ourselves in these works, we can gain a broader perspective
A deeper understanding of our place in the world.
and a greater appreciation for the complexities of human experience.
Exactly. And it's important to note that Bennett emphasizes that serious reading isn't just about passively absorbing information.
Okay.
He encourages us to actively engage with the material,
So what does that look like?
taking notes, underlining key passages,
Okay.
and most importantly, reflecting on what we've read and how it connects to our own lives and experiences.
So it's about making it personal.
Exactly, bringing those ideas into our own world.
That makes sense.
He suggests dedicating at least 45 minutes to this reflection process for every 90 minutes of reading.
45 minutes, that's a good chunk of time.
It is, and he admits it might feel like a chore at first.
I can imagine.
But he argues that as we develop this habit of reflection, it becomes a source of pleasure, leading to deeper understanding, greater self-awareness, and a richer inner life.
I like that. He uses a beautiful analogy of exploring the countryside.
Oh, tell me about that.
It's not about rushing to reach a destination,
Okay.
but savoring the journey, taking in the scenery, and allowing ourselves to be surprised by unexpected discoveries. It's about embracing that slow and deliberate process of intellectual exploration,
I see.
allowing new ideas to take root and shape our understanding of the world.
That's a beautiful way to think about learning.
It really is.
It reminds us that true knowledge isn't just about accumulating facts, but about integrating those facts into our understanding of the world, connecting them to our own experiences, and allowing them to shape our perspectives.
So it's about making those connections.
Exactly, seeing the web of knowledge.
I like that. Okay, so we talked about mind control, self-reflection, and serious reading.
Yeah.
It's clear that Bennett is passionate about self-improvement.
He is
And his book offers a blueprint for those seeking a richer, more meaningful existence.
a guide to living a better life.
But are there any potential downsides to this approach?
That's a good question.
Does he address any pitfalls or challenges?
He does. In fact, he dedicates a whole chapter to warnings and caveats.
Okay, listening.
One of the things he cautions against is becoming a prig.
A prig?
Yeah, someone who's so enamored with their newfound knowledge and self-discipline
Right.
that they lose their sense of humor, perspective, and compassion for others.
It's a valid concern.
It is. It's easy to get carried away when we start on a journey of self-improvement,
Yeah.
to become so focused on our own progress that we forget about the people around us.
It's like we get tunnel vision.
Exactly.
So how do we avoid that?
Bennett stresses that self-improvement should enhance our lives, not make us insufferable to others.
Okay.
He emphasizes the importance of humility,
Right.
recognizing that we're all on our own unique journeys,
I see.
and that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to living a good life.
It's about finding that balance between striving for personal growth and maintaining a sense of humility in connection with others.
Yes, recognizing that our individual journeys are ultimately intertwined with the lives of those around us.
I like that. He also cautions against becoming enslaved to our schedules.
Ah, yes, the tyranny of the to-do list.
Exactly. He emphasizes that our daily program should be a tool, not a tyrant.
It's about finding that sweet spot between structure and flexibility.
Right. While a structure is important, rigidity can stifle our creativity, spontaneity, and joy.
It can turn life into a chore.
It's a good reminder that sometimes we need to allow ourselves to deviate from the plan,
Yes.
to embrace the unexpected, and to just be present in the moment without feeling tethered to a schedule.
Sometimes the best moments happen when we least expect them.
Exactly.
Oh,
And perhaps surprisingly, he advocates for deliberately wasting a few minutes between tasks.
really?
At first glance, this seems to contradict his whole emphasis on making every minute count.
It does seem counterintuitive.
But I'm curious to hear his reasoning.
Well, what Bennett is suggesting is a form of mindful pausing.
Oh.
A deliberate break from the constant mental chatter and to-do lists that often consume us.
So it's about creating space for stillness and reflection.
Exactly. Allowing ourselves to simply be without feeling the need to be constantly productive.
Like that.
He believes that these small acts of waste are actually investments in our well-being.
Okay.
They allow us to reclaim a sense of control over our time and avoid feeling constantly rushed and overwhelmed.
It's a fascinating concept.
It
It's
will-
about recognizing that sometimes the most productive thing we can do is to simply step back, take a deep breath, and allow ourselves to recharge.
Precisely. And it's about approaching life with a sense of balance,
Mm.
understanding that true fulfillment comes not from constant striving, but from finding joy in both the big and small moments.
The productive and the seemingly unproductive.
Exactly.
That's a valuable lesson, especially in a culture that often glorifies busyness and productivity. It's about giving ourselves permission to slow down, to savor the simple pleasures, and to cultivate a more balanced and sustainable approach to life.
Well said. And finally, Bennett stresses the importance of starting small and being kind to ourselves.
Okay.
He knows that changing habits and routines can be tough,
It can be.
and setbacks are inevitable.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
He encourages us to be patient with ourselves, to celebrate those small wins, and to view this as a journey of continuous learning and growth.
It's a reassuring message.
It is.
It takes the pressure off feeling like we have to make massive changes overnight.
Exactly. It's about making small, sustainable changes that we can stick with over time,
Right.
rather than trying to do too much too soon and burning ourselves out.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And it's about embracing the process, knowing that true growth takes time
And effort.
and a willingness to embrace the bumps along the way.
I appreciate that he highlights this aspect of self-improvement.
It's important.
It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see results right away. But remembering that it's a process, not a destination, can help us stay motivated and keep moving forward.
He reminds us that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
I like that.
And the key is to keep moving forward one step at a time towards a life that is more fulfilling and aligned with our values.
And sometimes those steps might lead us in unexpected directions,
They might.
opening up new possibilities we hadn't even considered before.
It's all part of the journey.
Now, that's a powerful message to carry with us as we navigate the ups and downs of life.
It is.
And it beautifully encapsulates the spirit of Bennett's book,
I agree.
encouraging us to approach our lives with intention, curiosity, and a willingness to learn and grow.
And to remember that we have the power to shape our own destinies.
Not by trying to control every aspect of our lives.
But by making conscious choices about how we spend our time, energy, and attention.
It's about recognizing that we are not simply passengers on this journey of life,
But active participants who have the ability to choose our direction, set our course, and create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. He empowers us to take ownership of our lives and to view each day as an opportunity to create something extraordinary, not through grand gestures, but through the accumulation of small, intentional choices.
and those choices compounded over time have the power to transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us.
It's a ripple effect that starts with each individual, but extends outward, influencing our families, our communities, and ultimately the world.
And that brings us to the heart of Bennett's philosophy.
The idea that we all have the power to transform our lives by making conscious choices about how we spend our time,
He reminds us that it's not about finding more time.
but about changing how we think about and utilize the time we have.
It's a perspective shift that can be truly liberating
It allows us to move beyond those feelings of scarcity and overwhelm.
and embrace the abundance of possibilities that exist within each 24-hour cycle.
It's about recognizing that every moment, every hour, every day is a chance to create something meaningful.
To learn something new, to connect with others, to contribute to the world in some small way.
And those small acts of creation, connection, and contribution, compounded over time, have the power to transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us.
It's a beautiful vision, the call to action that resonates as strongly today as it did over a century ago.
I think that's a perfect note to end on, at least for this part of our deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
exploring Bennett's insights on time management, mind control, self-reflection, serious reading, and the importance of avoiding those pitfalls, like becoming a prig or a slave to our schedules.
We've also touched on his emphasis on starting small vintage, being kind to ourselves, and viewing this journey of self-improvement as a marathon, not a sprint.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Arnold Bennett's How to Live on 24 Hours a Day.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It has. We've been exploring Bennett's philosophy on, really making the most of our time.
From mastering our minds to serious reading and thoughtful reflection.
Right. But now let's get down to the practical stuff.
Okay, I like it.
What specific advice does Bennett actually give for, putting these ideas into practice in our lives?
Well, one of the things that really stands out in Bennett's book is his focus on structure and routine.
Structure and routine.
Yeah. He suggests we should approach each day with a clear plan,
Okay.
like actually allocating specific time blocks for work, leisure, self-improvement,
Right.
and even those wasted moments of mindful pausing that we talked about earlier.
I see how having that kind of structure could help create a sense of order and purpose.
Right.
But doesn't that risk becoming like the rigidity he warned us about?
That's a good point. It's a fine line.
Yeah. How do we balance that structure with flexibility?
You've hit on a key point. Bennett acknowledges that tension. He says the schedule should serve us, not enslave us.
I like that.
It's about creating a framework that supports our goals and values, but still allows for spontaneity and change.
So it's more like a flexible roadmap than a rigid itinerary.
Exactly. He encourages us to see our schedule as a living document, something we can adjust as our needs and circumstances change.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about having a general plan, but being open to deviating from it when needed.
Right. Life throws curveballs.
It does. But even with a flexible schedule, it can still feel overwhelming to think about fitting all of Bennett's suggestions into our already busy lives.
I hear you.
So where do we even start?
Bennett's advice is to start small.
Okay.
Pick one area where you want to improve.
Like what?
Maybe it's spending 30 minutes each morning reading or setting aside an hour a week for focused reflection.
Okay.
The key is to choose something manageable and stick with it consistently.
So it's about building momentum through small, consistent actions.
Exactly, rather than trying to change everything all at once.
That takes the pressure off.
It does. He says consistency is more important than intensity.
I like that. But even with small steps, it can be hard to stay motivated, especially when you don't see results right away.
That's true. Motivation can be tricky.
It can. So how do we stay on track?
Bennett reminds us that true self-improvement is a lifelong journey, not a destination.
Okay.
It's about enjoying the process, the ups and downs, the challenges and the wins.
So falling in love with the journey, not just the destination.
Beautifully said. And it's about celebrating those little victories along the way.
The small wins.
Yes, recognizing that every step forward, no matter how small, shows our commitment to self-improvement.
That's a powerful reminder, especially in a world that's so focused on instant gratification and overnight success.
It is. It's about shifting our mindset from impatience to patience and perseverance.
Right. Recognizing that real growth takes time, effort, and a willingness to embrace those inevitable setbacks.
He emphasizes that setbacks aren't failures.
They're not.
They're opportunities to learn, adjust, and keep going.
It's about reframing our perspective on challenges.
Yeah.
Seeing them not as obstacles, but as stepping stones on the path to growth and self-discovery.
I love that analogy.
And that brings us back to one of Bennett's core messages. We all have the power to transform our lives.
Not through some big dramatic change.
Through those small, intentional choices we make every day.
It's both empowering and humbling.
It is. It reminds us that we're not just victims of circumstance.
But active participants in shaping our own destinies.
And that message resonates just as strongly today as it did over 100 years ago.
Absolutely. In a world that can feel chaotic and overwhelming, Bennett's book offers a timeless guide for creating a more meaningful life.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into how to live on 24 hours a day, let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
A little nugget of wisdom.
Exactly. What's the one thing you hope people take away from this deep dive?
Remember, you have the power to make every minute count. It starts with a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Seeing time as a gift, a resource to be invested wisely, and a chance to create a life that's truly your own.
And don't forget, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
That's a good one.
So start small, be kind to yourself, and keep moving forward, one intentional choice at a time.
That's great advice.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living with intention.